Hello and welcome back to another Sons of the Forest video. Today I'm going to be showing you what I consider to be the 5 best base building locations. And now there's a lot of debate on this. Basically, I mean, I take a lot of things into consideration, one of which being just how convenient is it for the story. So there are some interesting bases like islands off the coast, the tippy top of the mountain, things like that where it's like, yeah, it's cool, but how practical is it, you know? How hard is it to get back to your base and do anything or use it for anything special? How centrally located is it? Can you start the game out there and set up your camp, or is it going to take multiple days for you to get the resources and everything to get to that spot to start building on it? And, you know, are there natural defensive fortifications? So there's lots of things to be considered, and obviously because of the sandbox nature of this game, I believe that you can build a really good base pretty much anywhere on this map. But that being said, there are some strengths and weaknesses to a lot of the different locations. So I'm just going to go through those 5 locations that I've picked out that I really like for base building. I think they work well for a lot of reasons, and I'll explain those reasons one at a time. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. So the first location is the one that I always recommend, especially starting off the game, maybe for your first playthrough, and it is this one of the starting locations that you could potentially begin the game at. And so that obviously makes it convenient, but the reason I like the spot, well, reasons I should say, it's got pretty much everything. For one thing, yes, it's not right in the middle of all the action, you're not right by the stuff, but you're far enough away from cannibal and mutant activity that if you don't antagonize them, this spot remains relatively peaceful for longer than a lot of the spots will in the game, because there's a cannibal camp up that hill and kind of over the top of that hill and on the other side, and there's a mutant cave right there, but not super close to really any of the big hot spots. So it's a relatively peaceful spot. It's great for gathering resources. There's big amounts of yarrow and chicory not too far away. You can harvest oysters all around. The only thing that you readily don't have available right here on the spot is drinking water, but right up the hill there's a small river you can drink from and fill your canteen in, so that's not hard. And once water collectors are added, you know, that will also be less of an issue. But you can gather all sorts of oysters in the water around the ocean. There's actually a loot gathering spot over by this point, off the point of the peninsula here, where you can gather quite a few useful consumables for the game. So if you get to the other side of this rock, you can see there's things like cereal, some tape, ropes, quite a few ropes, some energy drinks, alcohol, all sorts of stuff, and that respawns every time, you know, anything in the game respawns. I think at season changes and whenever you reload the save. So that's something that's useful. You've got seagulls flying around that you can kill for feathers and eat, and there are fish that you can fish or trap in the ocean, and also those 2 rivers close by that you can fish for. You'll get rabbits and squirrels in the woods right around here, so it's got a lot of resources. It's a good spot where you've got ocean on 3 sides, so if you build yourself a defensive fortification on here, you really only have to worry about mutants and cannibals coming at you from the forest. If you decide to build a big structure, you're going to use up a bunch of trees, and so you can see I've got pretty good lines of sight going forward, so you can see Virginia coming up when you're trying to build affinity with her. It's a beach, so Virginia will naturally be attracted to this spot, and it's just generally good. It's a good spot to build. It's got flat enough stuff, it's got good resources, and it's a starting location, so you can start here right away. So for all those reasons, I recommend this little beach here as one of the best spots to build your base in the game. But with that being said, let's move on to the next one. And you don't have to go far for another really good spot. And so you can see, if we look back towards the ocean, you can see that we're not actually very far from that starting beach where I showed you, and there's this nice open clearing on a gentle slope here in the woods, and this makes a really nice building spot. So for one thing, you're pretty dang close to that water supply that I recommend using for the beach location. If you look back that way, there's that little river there that you can get nice clean drinking water out of, and even fish. But you're also quite a bit closer to that river there, which is a great spot for collecting fish, which is, you know, an excellent source of food in this game. And as well as that, you'll also find rabbits, deer, and squirrels jumping around, so hunting and fishing is a pretty good way to get food around here. It's also, like I said, this one spot here in the middle is nice and open, so you don't really have to clear anything to build here, and you have plenty of wood around you, basically an inexhaustible supply. It's not inexhaustible, obviously, so don't feel the need to correct me on that, but there's so much that you could build pretty much anything that you can build in the game, and you're not going to use up all the wood within a really close radius. So this spot has a lot of advantages going for it, basically kind of the same stuff as the beginning. It's not hard to get there. You can do this early game. There's plenty of resources around you to get, lots of berries and flowers that you can harvest in the woods that are useful. Like I said, animals to hunt, fish to fish for. The only downside of this spot is especially starting about like late mid-game, maybe once you get to like day 50, stuff like that, which, you know, some people might consider that an extremely late game, but, you know, whatever. You will start to see a higher cannibal activity here, mostly just because you're in the woods, but also because there's a cannibal camp not far that way, there's one not far that way, and there's one not far that way. So it's kind of a central convergence point. I've had times where I've come to this clearing and there have been 30 cannibals in the general area. So it's a real good spot. It's easy to build here. There's lots of good resources, and it's just a pretty spot. But it can get dangerous late game. So you can see I've already killed some cannibals in the area. You can probably see their dead bodies lying around, and there's another one running around over there. That is really the only downside. But other than that, a great spot to build. So that's why it's my second recommendation. All right, and so here's our third spot. Again, it's not crazy far from your starting location. We're obviously quite a bit further than the second one was from the first, but you can see on the map we're by this little lake with a tiny little island in it and kind of an offshoot, and then like a tributary river that runs down towards the ocean. This spot is really, really good. There's very few downsides. We've got this large, open, flat area where you automatically have some built-in sight lines, and you can build it as close or as far away to the lake as you want. The way that I like it is right up next to the lake, so kind of you pick a spot, build a defensive wall around it, build all your structures on the inside of that, and then you can either be open to the lake or, you know, have it closed off or whatever. But it gives you a readily available source of food because there's fish in the lake and tons of animals in this area. I would say that there's even more deer running around here than cannibals, and unfortunately, like most places in the game, there you will see a decent amount of cannibals. But ironically, not as many at this location as there were at the second location, just on average. But yeah, this spot has lots of food. You can fish for fish, hunt all sorts of animals, and, you know, gather berries, different flowers, all sorts of stuff like that. Obviously, plenty of timber. You know, you can see tons and tons of trees in the area, and I've already cut some down to build stuff, like a tower and stuff like that. So, plenty of wood to build with, and a really nice area. So, like I said, this is a large, open, flat area with a lake, which I guess also makes it scenic. So, if you want to build your spot in a pretty place, then it's good for that. But really, it's just a lot of strengths and not a whole lot of weaknesses. Plus, as a bonus, you can make it even more specific because there is that tiny little island in the middle. So if you wanted to build like your base right here, which is what I would recommend, like I said, defensive wall from the edge of the lake all the way around as far as you want to go, and then just all your structures inside that you want to keep up. So if you have a garden or something like that, your meat drying racks, your extra quarters for Virginia and Kelvin. But then you can build a tower here and a tower out on that island and zip line back and forth, and you can have your own personal residence on that little island. So be totally secure in the middle of your lake. And if you want to feel even more secure, you could build a little palisade around the outside of that. I'm thinking about doing that. This could be a really cool spot for me to build like a Mott and Bailey style castle where the Mott actually has a large moat around it. I've got some cool ideas. But like I said, this is a really good spot. It's not hard to get to. It's got a lot of resources to harvest. It's not so cold that Virginia will avoid it. I mean, during the winter, you might not see her up here as much, but it's a good spot. So that's why I put it on this list. I really like it, and I plan to build some cool stuff here. So that's the third location that I recommend. All right, so for the fourth spot that I like to recommend, it's another beach location. This time it's a larger beach. You'll probably recognize it as the place where you can go find the pistol with one of the GPS locator beacons out on that floating raft. Careful, there are sharks in the water. But it's a really good spot for a lot of reasons, a lot of which we've already talked about with the other locations. So as for one thing, you can get fish and oysters from the ocean, which is convenient. You can't drink this water, but you can drink the river water that's coming down, so you've got a water source right nearby you. There are animals in the woods, mostly squirrels and rabbits around here, but you will find some deer down this close to the river, or down this close to the ocean. It's got nice big flat areas, so it's really easy to build larger structures without having to get all disjointed and stuff. The trees, of course, since you're not right in the middle of them, you do have to walk to get your wood, but there are tons of them around you, so it's not like it's going to be a ridiculously hard process of gathering the stuff you need to build here. It's just got all the strengths and none of the weaknesses. It's a beach, so naturally it's going to be easier to attract Virginia here, and she'll be easier to raise the affinity with her if you build at this location, just because she seems to really like the warmer climates and beachy areas a lot better. Like I said, it is nice and conveniently located close to the pistol, so you'd be able to get your hands on a gun nice and early if you build here. Not a ton of mutant activity. There's some cannibal activity, but not a crazy amount here. I think there's actually less here than there is over on the first beach that I looked at, because I've spent a decent amount of time at a little camp I have set up over there, you can see, and never really suffered a whole lot of attacks here. So pretty solid spot, not a whole lot of activity at it, but like I said, readily available sources of food in the area around it. So that's the 4th spot. I really like the spot, and there's a lot of potential here, but let's move on to the final spot that I would like to recommend today. And finally, at our 5th spot, we're up a little bit further into the woods. You can see on the radar we've got, or on the GPS, we've got that little lake with the 4 streams coming out of it. There's one of the flashing green GPS locations, a cave up there, another cave up there. You can see another GPS location over by that lake to the left. So lots of stuff going on here. We're pretty centrally located, and because of that, it does equal relatively high cannibal activity for good chunks of the game. But basically, this little clearing here, and then up the hill from it, so this is kind of you could either have spots at both, or just one or the other. I find them both to be pretty dang good spots, though. So this clearing right here is big enough that you can build a substantial settlement, or just a giant house, or whatever you want to go with here, but not crazy huge. But there is tons of trees right in the general vicinity, and obviously cutting those down helps you establish sightlines and everything. But it's got a lot of stuff going for it. For one thing, it's got this nice steep cliff off to one side, so if you build your wall up around it, you don't even need to build one on this backside, and you'll be perfectly safe back here, because the cannibals and even the mutants cannot scale this cliff. Right down the cliff, I guess I was going to say hill, but the cliff from here, you have a river which has clean drinking water and fish in it, so you've got a readily available source of food and water. The woods around us here are just chock full of rabbits, squirrels, and deer, so plenty of potential for hunting there. Like I said, there is cannibal activity in the area, but, you know, most of the map falls under that category, especially all of the really good spots, so that shouldn't be too much to hold you back. Once we go up the hill, you'll see that I built a small structure up on a pretty cool spot that's maybe not quite as easy to build at as the spot I just showed you down by the cliff, but it is unique and cool for a lot of reasons, which is why I built there. So up here, there is another spot. It's not normally this open. I obviously had to cut down a bunch of trees to build here, but it's got a relatively large opening, and it's next to this little ravine. And so that would be why I built here, is just the interest of having this ravine here. It works, again, relatively well as a defensive fortification, because mutants and cannibals trying to get into your little camp, if you build one like I did here, will typically just fall into the ravine. And I've seen a bunch of them try to jump from the other side and not make it, so that's fun. Of course, you could build on both sides, but, you know. But like I said, this spot's a little harder to build on, but it does offer a unique challenge and a easily defendable location if you do. But that spot down by the cliff basically has no weaknesses. It's a really good spot. That is all 5 of my best recommendations for where to build. There are some cool spots, like on the far side of the island, that have their own advantages, and some of them are really cool, so maybe I'll make a video for that in the future. But I wanted to keep these first 5 to be ones located in locations that you're actually going to spend a good chunk of the game in, which is why I put them on this first half of the island. It's possible that at a later date, a lot more content will be added, and so there will be more point in spending more time on the back side of the island. But for now, it makes more sense to spend your time up here. So that's why I chose spots all kind of located in this part of the island. But that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it useful, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.